Welcome to Visionary Talk Radio for Higher Education. I'm Mike Matthews, along with my co-host, Dr. William Eilenfeld, President Emeritus of Chippewa Valley Technical College. With us, we have Bill joined in via WebEx from Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Bill, why don't you go ahead and say something to the audience?
Well, I'd like to welcome you to the show. We're excited about having Dr. Path with us, and it's good to be back on the air with this program. As Mike said, I'm President Emeritus of Chippewa Valley Technical College in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and I'm also author of Visionary Leadership, Proven Pathway to Visionary Change. So we hope you enjoy this show as much as we enjoy presenting it to you.
All right, thanks, Bill. I feel privileged. Here I am, co-host of a Visionary Talk Radio show. On my left, a great visionary. On my right, via electronics from a different state, another visionary who I had the privilege to work for quite a few years. And here we are to talk about higher education. It's no secret that there's a crisis in education. That crisis has a lot to do with the cost of education, but also the alignment of education to help people get good jobs. The Gallup organization has shared very clearly that the number one issue around the globe is good jobs. 10 million job openings around the world, a surplus of college graduates, and there's a disconnect. And that's why we're so honored today to have with us Dr. Bill Path. Dr. Bill Path has learned some secrets to success, but he'll tell you some of his war stories as well. But he's learned the secret to success is alignment. And I want to give a warm welcome to Dr. Bill Path, who's going to talk a little bit about the campus that he oversees as a visionary leader. Dr. Path, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to join you here on set today, and greetings to Bill as well online. It's an honor to be joining the program today. And just to introduce you a little bit about myself, I'm the fourth president now at Oklahoma State University Institute of Technology in Okmulgee, Oklahoma. We identify ourselves as being the state's only University of Applied Technology. And our major claim to fame is that we work directly with business and industry to almost ensure that students have a job available for them the day of graduation.
Wow, the day of graduation. Explain it a little bit further. I mean, what are you doing different than others to ensure, or at least up the chances of making sure they have a job the day of graduation?
Well, OSU Institute of Technology opened its doors in 1946. It was basically set up as a program that would help returning veterans from World War II to enter the civilian workforce. And we've remained very close to those roots over the years, bringing on college credit and academic degrees, now offering even bachelor's degrees on our campus. But every single degree that we offer is identified with a particular job outcome. We're not simply training students to vaguely enter the workforce. We are identifying students with specific skills, with specific employers for specific outcomes, so that when a student graduates from OSU IT, they would know exactly who their employer is going to be in many cases. There have been some occasions, even at graduation, I've been brave enough to stand up in front of a group of graduating seniors in cap and gown and ask the question, all of those of you that have a job waiting for you today, would you please stand? And to my pleasure to see almost the entire graduating class stand up. And as you can imagine, moms and dads in the audience just erupting into applause to see that, because that's truly, in my opinion, what higher education should be about. It should be about employability. And that's what we do on our campus. Every day of the week, we live and breathe workforce development in our classes, in our labs, in our offices. From the time we wake up in the morning to the time we go to bed at night, we're trying to figure out how do we better connect our students with the jobs that are available out there. We're dedicated to filling the skills gap one highly trained graduate at a time.
Yeah. Bill, on behalf of all parents in America, thank you. Because I relate to the parents who are in the audience and say, where's my son or daughter going to be employed? But to sit in an audience and hear that the president is that confident that he's not going to be embarrassed or she's not going to be embarrassed by who stands. Why do you think some presidents would be afraid to ask that question?
Well, you know, I was a president of a community college for 10 years before being recruited here to Oklahoma, and we had a very good placement rate, but it was generally within 6 months after graduation that we would identify where the students had gone to. I would say that most presidents would, in my opinion, be afraid to ask that question because it would be embarrassing how many students would still be seated. This is a very difficult job market right now in this strained economy that we have. that it is far more difficult to enter the workforce than it was even when you and I were entering the workforce a generation or two ago. But what young people now have to do is to understand that employers are far more selective about the skill sets for the people that they are hiring. They're looking for somebody with either work experience or somebody with technical skills to enter the workforce prepared on day one. And when you look at the national statistics from the Department of Labor, it's frightening how many young people with very good bachelor's degrees are still identifying themselves as being unemployed or underemployed after graduation. And that's not what the United States should be about. Our higher education system really owes those students a lot more. They deserve better than to be entering the unemployment lines when they should be entering viable employment opportunities after graduation.
Great point. Again, on behalf of all parents, thank you so much for having that vision of success in mind, because that's really what it is. When you think about advancement at your college or university, as well as many, we call it college advancement, but it means fundraising, right?
Right.
Really, advancement should be the advancement of students. The American workforce is really what needs to be advanced. And I'm going to turn over to my right, and Bill, I want you to share your 42 years in higher education. You were a phenomenal success at connecting with industry, business. So go ahead and share with the listening audience a few comments off what Dr. Path just shared.
Well, I'm very intrigued by it because that's really what it's all about is finding jobs. I know a lot of colleges and universities avoid talking about that particular situation, but I think it's the job of college presidents to have their ear to the ground in terms of the programs that are going to be necessary to provide the future for the state they're located in, for the nation, and this day and age, for the world. I think too many times we find that institutions will sit back and say, well, we've always done it this way, and let's just continue on with the same programs that we've always had. I think in order to be successful today and into the future, you're going to have to take risks. You're going to have to look into the crystal ball, so to speak, and try to identify programs that might not be available right now, but that might not be online right now, but that will be in the future, and start to move in those directions. So I really applaud what's happening, and I'm wondering, Dr. Path, if you can give us a little bit of an idea, our audience a little bit of an idea as to the types of programs that you have at your institution.
I'd be happy to do that, Bill, and I feel a kindred spirit in Bill because I've been in higher education for 30 years doing the same kind of work that Bill has done over the years as well. And let me identify some of the programs, but before I'd like to comment a little bit on what Bill just said. I've been around long enough, as most of you in the audience, to remember that when buying a house always meant that you had an appreciated value, or having a savings account always meant that you earned interest, and having a bachelor's degree always meant that you're going to be able to find a job. Well, I'm sad to say none of those are true anymore. And why would we continue to give the same advice to a young person about selecting a bachelor's degree that we would be giving about having a savings account or appreciations on a retail, on a piece of property? The rules have changed in the United States, and young people need to understand that you need to be selecting your major and selecting your university in a different way than you did a generation ago. We have some pretty strange reasons why we choose the colleges that we choose. You know, it's where my girlfriend is going to, or my boyfriend is going to, or I like the football team, or the color on the uniform, or it's where my parents went, or something like that. I tell young people anymore, rather than talking to the admissions office and the recruiters, maybe you need to be talking to somebody in the placement office at the university that you're looking at. Maybe you should be finding out about the track record of where graduates are going and how successful they are once they leave the institution. That should probably be the first contact that they make on a campus. But sadly, not many students are doing that at this point in time. But to answer Bill's question, Over the years, we have developed quite a plate of varied programs on our campus that really does establish us as a quite unique institution. Many of our programs that I talk about are sponsored programs, fully sponsored by industry. For a small little campus of around 3,000 students, we have corporate partnerships numbering close to 700 different entities from around the country and around the world. We have a Rolex watchmaking program on our campus. We're one of 3 in the nation that have Rolex as a primary sponsor. We're hoping in the next year or 2 to establish that into a bachelor's degree, which will be the only bachelor's watchmaking program in the world. We have a Caterpillar program on campus, and a Greco program, a Komatsu program on campus. In the automotive areas, some names you'll recognize, we have the Ford program, the Chrysler, the General Motors, the Toyota program on campus. In each of these areas, we are teaching the curriculum of the industry. We have those industry representatives on our campus regularly looking at our coursework, looking at what we are teaching in the labs, donating equipment to us so the students are learning on the latest and greatest technology, and they are setting up paid internships for students. A lot of times students will come to OSU IT with a sponsorship. They will wind up with more money in their pocket after they graduate than when they entered the institution, which is completely contrary to what's happening in higher education right now. You know, we've just surpassed $1 trillion in the United States for student loan debt. Student loan debt is now higher in the United States than credit card debt. Something is completely wrong with this picture. We need to be creating these opportunities for young people.
You know, Dr. Path, what you said is so phenomenal that you're reversing the way education's being viewed or was viewed 40 years ago by having a different incentive. But you're doing something that Dr. Eilenfeld is good as well, partnerships.
Absolutely.
How do you exchange? Because there's no workforce entity out there that doesn't want education to succeed. That's what's an amazing part. Everybody wants education to succeed, so why aren't we? In your case, we are, because you're doing something innovative, you're visionary, but talk a little bit about the partnerships at an international level and a local level that makes you succeed. I'm very impressed with a bachelor's degree in watchmaking.
Well, happy to do that. You know, watchmaking is an interesting case for us. You know, we have a lot of programs on campus, but that was one of the original programs. If you think about it, in 1946, when the veterans were returning home, many of them were disabled. They were in wheelchairs. And so they were looking for civilian technical skills that they could use from a wheelchair. So that's one of the reasons they chose jewelry making and watch repair back in 1946 to be one of the original programs. Wow. One of my favorite pictures in our archives is an old black and white photo of the watchmaking class, and every one of the students was in a wheelchair. Wow. And I treasure that picture because that's the origin of the institution. But when we have industry partners that come to us and say, we have a workforce need, like the Southwestern Association, which is a trade association of over 800 different ag implement dealers across 5 states and construction equipment dealers. They came to us and they said, we cannot get enough trained diesel mechanics. Is there some way that you could help us teach the curriculum of John Deere and International Harvester and Case and Mahindra? And we said, absolutely, with your help, we can do this. And we developed a partnership to address the needs of those dealers for the trained diesel technicians that they need. So every time a student comes to us, they're already wearing the uniform of that dealer. They've got their dealer name on their shoulder and they've got their own name on the other side. So those students know exactly who is sponsoring them. They know exactly who's paying their tuition and buying their tools for them, purchasing their uniform, paying their room and board in most cases. And they know exactly who their employer is going to be after they graduate. But that's one of the reasons that the partnerships work so well for us. Scholarships are very good, and we do go after scholarships. But what we prefer to do is to identify sponsorships where a dealer or an employer is investing in their own workforce. I know when a lot of institutions of higher education, and I myself for years would say this, we're very proud to say that students are our #1 customer. Well, we take a little bit of an exception with that statement at OSU IT. We believe that employers are our #1 customer. The employers that hire our students are extremely valuable to us, and we actually listen to their workforce needs and apply those to the classroom.
Wow, that's impressive. So again, I want you to repeat that. Who's your real customer?
Well, our real customer are the employers that come to us with workforce needs. We have advances in technology that are affecting employers all across the country and all across the world. We have many major corporations that are looking at a workforce exchange right now with many of their trained employees getting ready to retire, and they're panicked right now. They're wondering, where is the next level of trained technician going to come from? And they're looking to institutions like community college, like technical college, like universities of applied technology to fill that gap for them.
Wow. You know, Bill, I don't want to start a competition here or anything, but Dr. Path, I heard him say before that some students come and leave college with more money than they came with. Now, top that, when you talk about your partnerships. You're on.
Well, well, first of all, I'd like to follow up before we leave this topic. I'd like to follow up a little bit with Dr. Path and pick his brain a little bit more. You start these programs to meet the needs of industry. Now, and they will provide you with the students whom they hire and put in the program. Do you eventually then grow these into programs for your institution at the baccalaureate level, or do they stay at that level?
Yes, we work with our state coordinating commission, which in Oklahoma is our state regent's office, to make sure that any degree program that we put together would meet the rigor or the expectation of the state regents. The state regents do require that we have a successful associate degree program before we apply for and establish a bachelor's degree program. So there is a stair-step fashion, if you will. So when an employer approaches us initially and they talk to us, our initial conversation is, what do we need to do in order to put together a successful associate of applied science degree? Just for the listeners' information, when we talk about associate of applied science degree on our campus, we're talking about a 90 credit hour program. When most community colleges offer a program by the same name, they're looking at anything from 61 to 72 credit hours. But because we actually go 12 months out of the year on a trimester system, our students can still finish the 90 credit hour programs in a 2-year period of time. But it's because the industry comes to us with a set of expectations, things that they want to see in the curriculum. We still need to have the related courses in order to offer and award the degree, but the result is a student will wind up with a well-rounded education that will get them noticed on the job. It's not our desire just to get a student in a job entry-level position and have them stuck there for the rest of their life. Nobody wants to see that. We try to give the students those soft skills that they need so that they can be noticed on the job and be successful on the job. And I'm fond of saying to students as they graduate, you want to get noticed on the job. You want to show up early, you want to stay late, you want to volunteer for the hard stuff, and before too long, somebody's going to recognize the value that you brought to their industry. Before too long, you're going to be running the place. It's all about work ethic, and and it's something that we've gotten away from a little bit, but we need to get back to our roots.
Great point. But just as important is when that employer sees that employee doing that, it ties back to you.
Absolutely.
Furthers the partnership to say, great people come out of that institution. So wonderful message that you're sending to people. Hey, Bill, when you ask the next question, if you can stay stationary when you ask the question, it'll help the audio and make sure it's consistent. So go ahead.
Okay. Bill, let's take a little bit of a different tack for now and look at your leadership successes. Obviously, you've got a lot going for you, and wonder if you might share with our audience a little bit in terms of the development processes that led you to your leadership successes. In other words, what can you share with our audience from your background that might mentor them as they move forward in their careers?
Well, I finished a master's degree from Texas A&M in 1985, and during that point in Texas, there was a hiring freeze all across the state, and I did exactly what all the career experts tell you not to do. I sent my resume out in a shotgun fashion looking for a counseling position, and I happened to have a resume that wound up at a community college. It's called North Harris County College at that time. It's now Lone Star College, very successful, metropolitan, very large community college in Houston. And lo and behold, they saw something in me that they hired me as a new counselor and / instructor, and that's the position that I took. I realized very early on I like the classroom, I like the student interaction, I like the advising a student portion of it, and assumed several roles along the way. And Bill, probably like yourself, I've worn several hats over the years, and in my case at a variety of institutions in different states, rising up through the ranks. But it's always been about trying to help create opportunities for young people. I've decided in my career that I only wanted to be associated with institutions that had strong technical programs that were physically and directly putting students into the workforce. We see so many students, adults as well, who are in down economies that are looking to retrain and looking to gain additional skills so that they can go back into the workforce. And your community colleges, your technical colleges, vocational schools are very good about doing that. Rarely do you see a person, as in my case, that has gone from a presidency of a comprehensive community college to be invited into a university system? It doesn't happen very often, I realize that. But it has given me a rare opportunity to really see higher education from both perspectives, and has given me a little bit of a unique voice in higher education. And I do, as a result, say some things you don't hear a lot of college and universities say. But I had decided a long time ago, if I was ever in a four-year college setting, I was always going to create opportunities for articulation for students that have finished their technical programs at community colleges. Because so oftentimes a young person will finish an Associate of Applied Science degree at a community college, and they really get the taste for higher education and decide, I really want to go on. But when they try to apply to a four-year college, the four-year college admissions office will make them start completely over again, or not give them full credit for their experiences. And I decided when I came to OSU IT, I wanted to reach out to community colleges, not only in Oklahoma but around the country, to really create a safe destination for young people to finish their bachelor's degrees if they got started in a technical area. So it's one of the projects that we're working on currently, and we're very excited as we continue to see those partnerships and articulations grow.
Great point, Dr. Path. And for the listening audience out there, I know Lone Star College System is listening. I did not know that Dr. Path even touched Lone Star College until this morning when we were walking down the hallway. We've never met before until this morning. We just knew he was a visionary leader, and here he is. Lone Star's touching people, and most community colleges are, most universities are. Can we quantify that? You know, what's the impact that a college system or university has on the world today? And it sounds like you've mastered a big part of that. Because as I listen to you, if I was a parent, I would say, how many jobs are there for a Rolex watchmaker to earn a bachelor's degree? So evidently you have enough data to prove that it's worthwhile putting on that degree. Any thoughts to other educators out there? How do you know it's the right program?
Well, you need to be listening to people outside the ivory towers, really, as far as establishing your curriculum. In my opinion, you need to be listening to the employers, the people that actually have the jobs that are out there. They will give you a good clue as far as what the needs are in the industry. In the fourth quarter of 2008, let's face it, the rules changed in this country, and the economy has not fully turned around. I don't know if it will ever turn around the way that it was before 2008, and the workforce needs have changed at this point in time. Sadly, the way that we teach and the curriculum that we're offering in most colleges and universities and traditional higher education have not changed to address the changing economy and the changing workforce. We are not seeing the same results for graduates that we saw a generation ago or even prior to 2008. In my opinion, it really comes down to a question between theoretical learning models and applied learning models. And you heard me say at the beginning of the program that we identify ourselves as the state's only University of Applied Technology. And what that means, when I say that and think that, is that we have hands-on learning. Students are actually learning with tools in their hands. I've seen so many times over my career a young person that maybe was a marginal student in high school, that they'd given up on themselves as ever being a good student. Their parents had given up on them. High school teachers and counselors had given up on them. But you take that same student and you put them in a classroom where they're learning with tools in their hands, they blossom. They are gifted students. They become some of your best and most highly motivated students that you're going to have on campus because they realize they see something within themselves that they've never seen before. And I've seen that over and over again so many times that I'm convinced that applied learning must find a viable place in higher education. I talk to employers regularly from around the country. And I talk to HR directors frequently, and I am hearing a very common statement that is frightening to me and should be frightening to everyone in higher education right now. They're saying with increasing frequency that I no longer look at pieces of paper, meaning they no longer look at the diploma. They're saying, don't show me your diploma, show me what you can do with your hands, show me what skills you can bring, show me what technical expertise that you have that I need in my business. That's what I want to see. And I believe that those of us in higher education need to listen to what the employers are truly saying.
Great point. And Bill, I'm going to turn it over to you. Give me 1 second. I'm going to make your audio live. Go ahead.
Couple of things. Number one, I'm intrigued that you had a counseling background, as did I. I talk about that in my book, and I think there's a lot of things that you learn in a counseling program that mesh very well with administrative positions. So it's intriguing that you have that background as well. I think the other thing that I found listening to you, Bill, is that I see so many colleges and universities that have internally focused strategic planning processes, as opposed to a process that will take them outside and listen to the true customers, bring that in, and then work with it. There are many that are doing it, but there's a lot of organizations. In fact, I was just involved with one this past week that's doing that in terms of their strategic planning process. It's all internally oriented, and to me, that's a dire mistake that you're not out there listening to the customers first. So I applaud you for that, and I think that's something we need to impress upon our audiences, that strategic planning processes or environmental scans need to be externally focused if they're going to be successful for institutions. One thing I'd like to ask you, though, Bill, is, you talk about the relationship between community colleges and 4 years. I see a trend in this country right now that a lot of community colleges are starting to offer or trying to offer baccalaureate programs. Do you think this is a trend that we're going to see more of? Do you feel that this is a good trend, or are we going to, as some people say, avoid or water down the associate degree programs?
It is a trend in higher education. We've seen it coming for a number of years, and for so many years, community colleges and technical colleges have really been looked down upon almost as a second-class citizen within the realm of higher education. And I can understand why so many community college leaders have really been looking towards offering more bachelor's degrees. And there's some very altruistic reasons to do that. But I wouldn't do it just so that you can be like a four-year college. I mean, we've had junior colleges in the past. I don't know that we necessarily need to be competing over who's offering the freshman-sophomore curriculum. We need to be looking at what the corporate needs are within the area for employers as well as for students, and trying to match those up. The community colleges, in my opinion, have a very altruistic mission. Particularly the comprehensive community colleges that offer the strong technical vocational programs, and there's nothing wrong with that. I really believe in higher education we are rapidly approaching a tipping point where almost the tail can wag the dog. We have many people waking up to the fact that we need to have some sort of STEM education or some sort of strong technical or vocational education component so that students can be successful. And I believe that community colleges and technical colleges have this right and have had this right for many years, and need to be seen more as the leader or the visionaries within higher education. So I'm saying for community colleges, don't try to make yourself just like the bachelor's granting institutions out there for that reason. There may be very good reason to offer the bachelor's degree programs, particularly if a community college is in a rural setting and there's not a lot of other geographic opportunities for their constituents. I can understand that. But when you get into the metropolitan areas where you've got multiple universities already offering coursework in the same area, the need for a community college to be offering the four-year degree programs, I question that sometimes.
Good point. Okay, Bill, I'll go ahead and continue with the next few questions. Dr. Path, I'm just amazed again that you're connected to the workforce. I get that. That makes perfect sense to me, because that's ultimately where people are destined to go, into the workforce and be productive for the American society. And to comment a little bit on the U.S. economy or the world economy, 10 million job openings, 3 million in America. If we could fill those, the economy has to go up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the gross domestic product has to go up. I mean, so when you think of it that way. But I noticed something different about you than most presidents. I have in front of me here a book that you've written by Dr. Bill Path, and it's called Moments of Forever. And if you just read the abstract, it's very, very clear that you get students, you get young people, that they need to be encouraged. They need to know that they have a destiny. And so what do you do, you know, probably behind the scenes that nobody sees, that affects students to encourage them to succeed?
Well, I appreciate you mentioning the book. I wrote that several years ago when I realized that over the course of my career, I saw lots of students that were successful and lots of students that weren't successful. I saw many students that had their act together. They knew exactly what they wanted to do when they grew up. They had no difficulty making their degree selections or major selections, and they were very driven by that vision that they had in themselves. And you see that a lot with entrepreneurs as well. These are very confident individuals if you study the entrepreneurs as a group. But on the other side, you see students that just kind of languish from one job to the next, from one relationship to the next, from one major to the next, maybe frequently changing their major over the course of their higher education career, wasting time, wasting money, wasting resources, trying to figure out who they are or what they're going to do. And the book was really written for that person that is really struggling to find greater meaning in their life. It's Moments of Forever, Discovering the True Power and Importance of your life. It's a metaphysics book. Metaphysics, of course, is the study of time, space, and human existence. I don't know anything about time or space, but I know a lot about human existence because I've been one all my life. I've been a student of human behavior for a long time, and I wanted to write a piece that would really help anyone understand how you fit in the grand scheme of things. And I know that I'm really heavy into workforce development, but life is much more than just a job. We need to have well-rounded existences as human beings. We need to make sure that we infuse appropriate recreational activities and hobbies and things that we can do in order to have a well-rounded life. But it's kind of how I've always balanced things in my personal life and my career.
Yeah. You know how I read books is I flip through the pages and I grab the block quotes, because that's sort of my barometer to say, is this going to be a good book? So I flipped it open to page 83, and it says, when we endeavor to do the right things for nothing more than the right reasons, we demonstrate the true and noble character of our people. That's a wonderful statement. Doing the right thing for the right reasons builds great character. I paraphrase there. And so to listen again, how you're listening to the consumers out there, which is employers, and then to actually touch students, believing in them. The Gallup organization says that the education system has reversed the truth, in that education says 60 to 70% of high school graduates are not college ready. Whereas the Gallup organization says in third grade, 76% are actually college ready in third grade because they have hope at that level. And they've got this proven through the Hope Index. But by the time they get to be a junior and senior in high school, the testing mechanism, all the discouragement of not passing a grade, or maybe it's algebra, maybe it's reading, and being called maybe a latchkey child, or maybe called child left behind, or not college ready, remedial education, all those terms are a derogatory statement towards students and parents. What have you done to reverse any kind of derogatory statements that education makes towards the hope of young people?
Well, to elaborate on that, I would comment on the most recent blog posting that I have yet to submit. I write regularly for the Huffington Post for this last year. And I write a lot on skills gap issues and workforce issues. And the latest blog that I'm getting ready to put out is using the phrase education gap. We know a lot about skills gap. But we're starting to see in surveys of employers, when they're asked about the factors that are most critical to the skills gap that they're seeing within their industry, what is causing the skills gap, the number one thing that they say is that the U.S. labor force, or the U.S. skilled labor force, is not kept up with the needs that they have within their industry. Hence, there is an education gap. The degrees that young people are earning are not matching up with the skill sets that employers are actually looking for. And what I do when I talk to young people is you need to be rational in these decisions. When you're graduating from high school and making that decision to go to college, it's going to be one of the biggest decisions you'll ever make in your life. You better make it a good one, and do your homework, do your research, do the study behind the scenes so that you can make the appropriate decisions. But be looking at where the jobs are and what those employers are asking for as far as technical skill sets, and then find you a major that will actually line up with that. And if a student can do that, then they can achieve their hopes and dreams. They need to first find a job where they can sustain themselves and support themselves and hopefully their family at some point. And then life can be full because there's plenty of time left over for the recreational activities, for the hobbies, in order to have a full and well-rounded life.
Thank you, Dr. Path. You know, it's one interesting thing when you think of parcel packages being shipped from one end of the country around the world today. There's FedEx or UPS tracking those packages so they show up on time. When you send your son or daughter on a trip they've never been on before, you make sure they have their GPS turned on and they get there. But education and careers has no way to monitor, measure. In fact, one of my greatest accomplishments in the last 2 years has been to recommend to a parent that you can get an MIT or Harvard degree cheaper than you can get a University of Texas degree or University of Oklahoma degree if you qualify. They had no clue. Their son just got accepted. But I said, how would the average parent know? So it's one thing to have all the great presidents that understand the value in connections and relationships, but how can we help parents better? Before they put down the money or the students move to a dorm room, how do they know where they're going? How will they get there? Any comments on that from Bill or Dr. Path?
You know, it is a challenge in this culture and in this economy right now to make those kind of decisions. And I just suggest that, as I said before, do your homework, figure out what the opportunities are that are out there and pursue them.
Okay, great point. Bill, any comments?
You know, I agree with you. I think that it's basically stepping out of the box. You know, we talk about institutions stepping out of the box, but I think parents and prospective students need to step out of the box as well. I look at, you know, my granddaughter is looking at colleges right now and universities. And, you know, a lot of, as she started the process, I saw a lot of the traditional types of things that counselors were leading her through. But, you know, there's so much more out there that's accessible in terms of the internet and information that I think people have to, you know, counselors today at the high school level and albeit students have to, or prospective high school graduates need to really push the limit in what they're looking for and find out what's available. Too many times it's, we've always done it this way and this is the way we're going to do it. I firmly believe, you know, and I like something that Dr. Path said before about the idea that perhaps a community college or a technical college is a stepping stone, the right way to go about it. There's so many opportunities that you can interface institutions today, and that it needs to happen more and more. And I think institutions need to bring this forward, that there are ideas. You don't have to necessarily start here. You know, at Chippewa Valley Technical College, we did bring in, you know, a liberal arts program, an associate degree, in addition to our 50-some associate technical and technical business and nursing programs. And for the first time now, I've seen institutions like the University of Wisconsin advertising in the materials of the community college, saying, you know, you can start at CVTC and end up at the university. So I think there's so many opportunities for people today that students need to be taught at the high school level to think out of the box, to look for the types of things that are available, like at your institution, Bill, or at other institutions. So, you know, I think counselors, counseling programs, career programs, placement offices, all of those types of things need to come into play much more at our institutions than they have in the past. And I know some institutions are doing it, but I think a lot more need to make that happen. If we're going to really push this environment and provide an educated workforce that can do the job for all of us well into the future. Bill, you've talked a lot, about the programs, and I want to take us back a little bit into the world of partnerships, and wondering if I've heard things like Rolex, and I've heard things like Caterpillar, and things of that nature. That excites me because we did a lot of the same things at the technical college level. And I'm wondering, how you've gone about developing those partnerships. How did you strike up a partnership with Rolex or strike up a partnership with Caterpillar? Those things just don't happen by accident.
That's a very good question, Bill, and there's probably a lot of people in the audience wondering those kind of things. And I'm quick to say that I'm certainly not going to take credit for all the partnerships that OSU IT has developed over the years, because many of them were established before I arrived. But one thing I have learned since being at OSU IT is that institutions of higher education distinguish themselves not by their similarities but by their differences. And one thing that I would say to the audience, if there's any educators out there, is look for ways that you can create relevancy within your curriculum for students. You've got to add value to your curriculum. It's not good enough just to be like everyone else or just to offer the degrees that you've always offered in the past just because it's a historic tradition of your institution. But make sure that the education that you're providing is still relevant in this modern economy. When OSU IT started these partnerships, it was essentially the industries that came to us first with questions. They had needs and they were looking for trained workforce in those particular areas. And it took a leap of faith, if you will, with some of the initial partnerships that we established on campus to break out of the mold and to say, yeah, we will do that. Maybe others in higher education are not willing to make that investment with private industry and to turn over some of the control as far as the curriculum to the private sector. But those decisions were made very early. I think they were very bold decisions, and as it turns out, they were the right decisions for OSU IT. It did create a very unique and very distinct campus environment. And I mentioned just a few of the majors that we have on campus. I would encourage people, if they want to go to the website and look at the rest of our curriculum, it's at osuit.edu. But we have a very well-renowned culinary program on campus, a very strong visual communication program, our construction management and air conditioning, heating, and refrigeration. We have a lineman school on campus, a number of engineering technology degrees. Did you know that employers say for every one engineer they're looking for, and they can't find enough engineers across the country, but for every one engineer they need to hire 10 engineer techs in order to implement the designs and drawings of engineers? And where are those coming from? They're coming from schools like ours and schools like community colleges and technical colleges. But find ways in order to become a unique institution addressing the needs in your geographic area or your state or the country. And what I've discovered in the case of OSU IT, success breeds success. We are now at the point where I have industry partners leading other industry partners to my office. And people will show up in the president's office that I've never met before representing an entirely new company saying that I've learned about your success with my competitors. Is there some way that you can help me as well? The number one question I get from employers is, how can I possibly get more of your graduates? And it's a problem, but I still swell with pride when I hear them say that. I'm offering your graduates good money, but they keep turning me down because they have better offers. What can I do to get more of your graduates from OSU IT?
Oh, that's a wonderful comment to have. Tough position to be in, but
Yes.
wonderful position to be in. Dr. Path, young people are out there thinking, I want to be a president just like Dr. Path or maybe like Dr. Bill Eilenfeld. And yet some of the difficulties with being a visionary leader, the questions people raise, and what advice would you have for people out there that are maybe they know they're a leader, they maybe a vice president at another institution and they want to be a president? What would you advise them to do considering the state of affairs in education today, the U.S. economy, and the challenges that are brought to your table every day?
Well, the first thing I say is don't follow the crowd. When everyone else is looking to the left, you look to the right and see what's happening on the sidelines. It will usually direct you to the visionary element that you need as a leader. And don't be afraid to have an opinion that would be contrary to others. There's going to be naysayers out there. No matter what you try to do, if you're trying to be successful, there's going to be somebody that will tell you that you can't do it, or that you shouldn't do it, or there's some reason that you shouldn't even try. And if we listen to the naysayers, we would never accomplish anything in this life. So an uncommon leader, the type of visionary leaders that we need to turn our economies around in communities and with institutions and with organizations and businesses, are usually those people that are charismatic enough to get others to listen to their ideas and their concepts, but have enough courage within themselves and confidence within their own ideas that they can take a position that would be contrary to the popular opinions that are out there.
As you look back in your career and you've maybe taken 10 of those kind of decisions that are contrary to the right versus the left, have you ever regretted taking those other turns?
You know, that's a good question. Personally, I don't ever look back with regrets on decisions. You know, there are some things, I guess, if I knew today what I didn't know then, I would have put a building at a different place, or maybe developed a program a little differently than we did. But I see that it serves no purpose to really go back and second guess those decisions. You try to make the decision as best you can with the information that you have available at the time, and then move on from there.
Good point. Now, this question is for Dr. Ihlenfeld and for Dr. Path, is that, you know, one of the things that I've noticed, and it's probably the elephant in the room in education, is that nobody's waking up in 8th grade and saying, Mommy, Daddy, I want to be a college registrar. Mommy, Daddy, I want to be a financial aid director. Mommy, Daddy, I want to be a bursar within the purchasing office. And so what that means is somehow as education exploded in the 70s and 80s and 90s, we filled positions, but worse yet, there's no training programs for most operational positions within education. And we're leading forward, but we look behind and say, I wonder if the operations is following or not. Any comments? I'll turn it to Dr. Ihlenfeld first, then over to Dr. Path. Give me 1 second, Bill. You are back live.
I think that you know, you're right, Mike. There are no training programs, and that's why we have such a difficult time. That's why programs like this exist. We have a lot of people who have been trained or educated in a certain area, but have never had the real life experiences that happen in education, and consequently, we've had to do a lot more in terms of on-site training to make that happen. I think colleges and universities will have to catch up with this at some point. A good example is the use of data in education today. I mean, we have systems, you know, that are, you know, so far superior to the ones that I grew up with that can help college presidents like I was make decisions in a much more efficient manner than ever existed before. Yet our colleges and universities are not necessarily training people in that. I think we have to step back at some point in time and say, are there programs that will do this? And I'm sure some exist, but I think a lot more needs to happen in terms of making that a reality as we move forward. Yeah, that's what it's going to take to provide the visionary leaders like Dr. Path in education in the future. Most of us were what I would call homegrown in terms of the things that we've learned on the job to make things happen, as opposed to having been educated in that particular format over the years.
All right, thanks, Dr. Ihlenfeld.
You know, it's interesting that you use that example because I've used it before. I don't know any young person that grew up hoping to become a college registrar. and I can say that because early in my career I was a registrar at Northwest Arkansas Community College, and there were members of my family, when they learned I was a registrar, had no idea what it even was. They thought maybe that meant I worked a cash register somewhere on the campus. But we've had our priorities messed up for a long time. Even after I became a college president, I had family members that didn't think that was such a big deal because I wasn't maybe a football coach, or I wasn't in charge of a sporting program or something on a college campus. But we need to make sure that young people are making the right decisions for the right reasons, and choosing the majors and choosing the careers that do make sense for them, and moving into the future that will continue to make sense.
Well, thank you both, Dr. Eilenfeld and Dr. Path, because the challenge for every educational leader out there is this: how do we better improve education, because it's so critical? Healthcare is a crisis in America, according to some, but I dare to challenge that education's twice the epidemic. How do we help people get where they need to be across the board, whether it's a community college, whether it's a university? Everybody wants a good job, but how do we prepare them for that? And so we're privileged again today to have these two visionary leaders who have risked a lot in their careers to get where they want. And Dr. Path, if I could ask one more question around visionary leadership. You've been through 2 to 3, maybe even 4 cycles of leadership where you've been at this university or college and learned lessons. This one, every iteration, are you getting better?
I hope I am. And no matter where you are in your career, be learning from your particular position, learning from the people around you. I've got to tell you, I've worked for some great presidents, and I've worked for some not so great presidents, and I probably learned some more from those that were challenging to me than from some of the ones that would have been considered better presidents. But in every situation that you're in, you're going to be able to find opportunities to learn something, to improve yourself, so that you can make the right decisions later on.
Okay, great. And so I assume every iteration you're starting to see further in the future than you've ever seen before, based on experience, lessons learned. And so you think of what a visionary leader is, and you're able to take more risk than most people are. And think of the value that we all can learn from people, if we listen, that have learned before us and go further. So Dr. Path, thank you so much for all your expertise today. And Bill, I'm going to turn it up to you for just a minute, because you are now retired but recognized as President Emeritus, part of many boards around your community. And if you could step back into a college presidency today, what would you do different?
Well, I think that there's a lot that I learned on the job, and that's a critical part of being a president. I mean, a lot of being a president in this day and age is fundraising and things of that nature. But I would take more risks at an earlier age if I had to step back into the presidency. I think that's probably the biggest mistake that most presidents make. You get into the job, and you're excited to be in the job, and you're not willing to necessarily rock the boat right away because you're getting your feet on the ground. But I think that educational institutions today are looking for people who are willing to do that, who are capable of doing that. Now, I realize that we all have boards of trustees and regents that we work with, but I think it's critical that young people moving into the presidency learn to take calculated risks. And I know that's a term that's been overused down through the ages, but I think it's finally come into its own in terms of the thing that's going to move us forward as a country more so than ever. I go back and say, if we don't provide the educated workforce that's necessary for the future, not necessarily for today, our country is not going to succeed. And we're going to have to make that a reality. So, the thing that I would say is I would have taken some of the risks that I took later on much earlier in my career. I think it's critical. And, the big thing that I think helped me, and Mike, you were familiar with this when we were working together, was having the right kind of data at the right point in time. And I think that's so critical for a president. We have a lot of people who shy away from some of the systems we have today, not only presidents, but mid-managers as well. And I think that's going to be critical as we move forward, that they know how to access and use that data, because it can make this risk-taking much easier than it is in the past. So, looking at it, to me, data, to me, listening to people on the outside, to me, taking those risks based on those two things is something that I think we need to learn to do much more effectively and efficiently than we have in the past.
Well, thank you, Dr. Eilenfeld, for joining us from Eau Claire, Wisconsin. You know, oddly enough, Eau Claire, Wisconsin is the place that they define the price of milk across the U.S. The U.S. Department of Agriculture does that. Why? Who knows? But they do that. So welcome, or thanks again, Bill, for your joining us today. And again, we want to thank you for the listening audience to tune into this, but also look at our library of visionary leaders who have spoken on similar topics, because education is critical to the success of our U.S. economy. And I'm going to give Dr. Path one more opportunity if he wants to challenge the audience in anything. You know, a lot has been birthed into him in education, but also for the caring of humanity through people. So if you want to share any last-minute comments, Dr. Path, feel free.
Well, just to comment on the role of leadership, that no leader is an island, no leader stands alone. You must surround yourselves with competent people that you can trust and instill trust in those people and confidence in those people. Your leader on your campus is the #1 cheerleader and really creates the campus environment more so than any one single person. But you need to hire the right people, give them the resources that they need, give them the set of expectations, and then get out of the way and let them do their job, because they will not disappoint you.
Yeah, great. In fact, if you want to know more about Dr. Bill Path and what's happening at Oklahoma State University Institute of Technology, do a search on Dr. Bill Path, and you'll see that his first 100 days of the 4th presidency at OSU is recorded, and he was learning. You'll find out how great leaders really do learn by getting out amongst the people, amongst their constituents, opening their ears, but then taking action to issues that are happening. Thanks once again for joining Visionary Talk.